watching him in the monitor. I was in the back and looking at the monitor. A drunk Indian was out here again. I know he was full of whiskey. Shut up out there. That drunken Indian got some feathers. Somewhere along the line, I'll tell him again. I noticed one other thing.
Imagine being at the peak of your athletic career, only to have it abruptly cut short by racism and injuries. From confronting racism head-on throughout his life to dying a tragic death, this is his story, and you have to hear about it. Born on November 28, 1938, in Rayville, Louisiana, Ernie Ladd grew up with a natural talent for sports. His family moved to Orange, Texas, when he was still young, and it was there that his athletic abilities really started to shine. In high school, he wasn't just good, he was exceptional. He excelled in both football and basketball, making it clear that he had the physical talent to go far. His athleticism was undeniable, and soon enough, he was off to Grambling State University on a basketball scholarship. But it didn't take long for Ladd to show that football was just as much his game. Alongside his teammate Buck Buchanan, Ladd became part of one of the most feared defensive line duos in college football. Things were going just fine for him until one day, God rewrote his story. After an injury in 1969 cut his football career short, Ladd turned to wrestling. What started as a way to stay busy during the off-season quickly became his full-time gig. But he didn't want to be just another wrestler. He wanted to stand out. That's when the Big Cat was born. The name fit his size and surprising agility in the ring, but it was his larger-than-life personality that really set him apart. Ladd became one of the most hated heels in wrestling, and he loved every minute of it. Back then, it was rare for a black man to play such a dominant villain, but Ladd didn't care about breaking that mold. He was cocky, confident, and had no problem talking trash. He'd roast announcers by calling them Mr. TV Announcer and take shots at his opponents with one-liners that had the crowd going wild. He wasn't just a wrestler, he was a character who knew exactly how to work the crowd. But Ladd didn't just rely on his mic skills. He brought the same power, presence, and dominance to the ring. His size and athleticism made him a tough opponent for just about anyone. He fought against some of the biggest names in wrestling, like Andre the Giant, Dusty Rhodes, and Bruno Sammartino. What made his matches with Andre the Giant particularly special was that Ladd was one of the few wrestlers who could stand toe-to-toe with the 500-pound giant. That was a rarity in a sport where most wrestlers look small next to Andre. And Ernie Ladd is one of those wrestlers whose career is hard to forget, not just because of the titles he won, but because of the impact he had on the world of professional wrestling. After leaving WWE in 1980, Ladd kept on pushing boundaries, collecting titles and making a name for himself all over the United States and even Puerto Rico. His championship list is long, and it includes the NWA Florida Heavyweight Championship, NWA Southern Heavyweight Championship, NWA America's Heavyweight Championship 3 times, and many more. What makes his story even more incredible is that Ladd didn't stick to just one place. He wrestled in so many territories, from California to Florida, Georgia, and even Japan. He spent a lot of time in the Mid-South area, near his home in Franklin, Louisiana, where he made a huge name for himself. His success in all these places helped solidify his place as one of the top wrestlers of his time. Ladd's impact was so big that he was inducted into both the WCW Hall of Fame in 1994 and the WWF Hall of Fame in 1995, making him the first person ever to be honored by both. That's no small feat. But Ladd's journey wasn't just about winning titles and being a wrestling star. It was about something much bigger. He had to deal with the ugly reality of racism, both in his personal life and in the wrestling industry. When Ladd was young, his family moved away from northern Louisiana to escape the racism they faced. Ladd was always outspoken about inequality, but his views on politics were more complicated than just fighting racism. He was a lifelong Republican, and he encouraged African Americans to join the party. He believed in personal responsibility and thought it was important for black people to have a diversity of political views. So even though many warned him not to return to the South, Ladd went back to Louisiana to pursue his wrestling career. He wanted to change the way African Americans in the South thought about politics, and he was determined to do it, no matter the risks. Ladd didn't just break barriers as a wrestler, he did it behind the scenes too. He became a booker for NWA Mid-South Promotions, which was huge. In simple terms, a booker is responsible for planning the matches and storylines, shaping the direction of the promotion. At the time, it was almost unheard of for a black person to hold a position like that. But Bill Watts, the owner of Mid-South Wrestling, saw something special in Ladd and trusted him with this major role. It wasn't just about getting the job done, it was about using that position to make real change. Ladd had seen firsthand the racism in football, and now in wrestling, he was in a position to do something about it. As a booker, Ladd used his power to give more opportunities to black wrestlers. He pushed for African-American talent to get more recognition, and he worked hard to attract a more diverse audience. Ladd wasn't just looking out for himself, he wanted to make the wrestling world better for everyone. One of his biggest moves was getting the Junkyard Dog to become a major star in the Mid-South territory. But pushing for change wasn't easy. Ladd faced a lot of backlash, including from Bill Watts, who started getting hate mail and even death threats because of the changes Ladd was pushing for. This shows just how hard Ladd's work was, especially in a time when racism was deeply ingrained in the wrestling world. But despite all the resistance, Ladd kept fighting. He knew that it was worth it to make the wrestling industry a fairer and equal place for future generations of black wrestlers. Now, Ladd's relationship with Bill Watts is an interesting part of the story. On one hand, Jim Ross, a close friend of Ladd, described Ladd and Watts as being like brothers. But on the other hand, Watts was known to use racial slurs towards Ladd. Despite that, Ladd often gave Watts a pass, believing that Watts didn't mean any harm. Others, like Jake Roberts, saw Watts differently, calling him a racist bully who didn't respect Ladd. This complicated relationship is a perfect example of how business and personal feelings can sometimes clash, especially in a time when racism was still very much a part of the culture in the South. Ladd's story shows that wrestling was just one part of his fight for equality. He didn't just want to be a champion in the ring, he wanted to create real change both inside and outside of the ring. He faced a lot of challenges, but his impact on the wrestling world is undeniable. His efforts paved the way for black wrestlers who came after him, and his work helped to change the industry for the better. He was working hard day and night to flip the scene and make black wrestlers recognizable. Although he did succeed to some extent, life threw a heavier battle his way. Sadly, in 2004, Ernie Ladd was given some devastating news. He had cancer. It started in his colon and quickly spread to his stomach and bones. For the next 3 years, Ladd fought with everything he had, but eventually the cancer took its toll. The man who had once seemed invincible was now facing his toughest battle. But here's the thing about Ernie Ladd. His physical body might have been breaking down, but his spirit, that remained as strong as ever. After years of hard-hitting football and wrestling, his body had taken a beating. By the end, Ladd was often confined to a wheelchair because of bad knee problems that stemmed from the physical demands of his career. But despite the pain and limitations, Ladd's will to live was unmatched. In 2005, his doctors gave him a grim diagnosis. They told him he had only 3 to 6 months to live. But instead of accepting that fate, Ladd responded with incredible faith. He told them, "I told him, doctor, Jesus has the verdict on me." And those words, "Dr. Jesus has the verdict on me," became something he was known for. Unfortunately, Ladd passed away on March 10, 2007, at the age of 68 in his hometown of Louisiana. He left behind his wife Rosalind, with whom he had spent more than 45 years, their 4 children, and over a dozen grandchildren. His death was a moment that made many people reflect on how much his career in sports had affected him. No one can say for sure if his cancer was connected to his time in football or wrestling, but there's no denying that his body took a heavy toll from years of intense physical work. His knee problems that left him in a wheelchair were a visible reminder of how demanding those sports can be, and that kind of strain can follow an athlete for life. But this is not a sob story. Ernie Ladd wasn't just known for his struggles. He was a legend, and his legacy is about far more than just the battles he fought with his body. Ladd holds the unique distinction of being inducted into both the American Football League Hall of Fame and the World Wrestling Federation Hall of Fame. Think about that. 2 Hall of Fames in 2 completely different sports. That's incredibly rare. Most athletes are lucky to be great in one sport, but Ladd excelled in both football and wrestling, proving just how versatile and talented he was. But that's not all. Ladd was also inducted into the WCW Hall of Fame in 1994, the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, and the Museum of the Gulf Coast Sports Hall of Fame. In 2004, he was honored in the San Diego Hall of Champions. Even though Ladd passed away in 2007, his story is still one that people talk about today. His impact continues to inspire. Sure, he was known for his size and strength on the football field and in the wrestling ring, but what really set him apart was his resilience. He wasn't just a physical powerhouse. He was a symbol of what it means to keep going, even when things get tough. And let's be real, his fight against cancer showed the world that real strength isn't just about how big you are, but about how strong your spirit is. Ernie Ladd's legacy isn't just about football or wrestling, it's about the way he lived his life. He faced his biggest battle with grace and faith, showing everyone that even when you're knocked down, you can still stand tall. His story reminds us that no matter what life throws at us, we can find a way to keep fighting. And just like Ladd did, we can always find strength in our faith, in our communities, and in the people who love us. So that's the story of Ernie Ladd, a man who was so much more than just an athlete. His life continues to inspire people all over the world, and his message of strength, resilience, and faith will live on forever. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more wrestling stories like this one.